Little is known about Thales, the legendary founder of Western philosophy. Some say he was descended from the Phoenician Levant, the ancestral homeland of the Carthaginians. Others say that he descended from a long line of Boeotian seafarers. What we all seem to agree on, however, is that Thales was born in the city of Miletus, western Anatolia, in the year 624 BC. Thales made full use of his city's long-established trade networks with the surrounding regions. In his youth, he journeyed to Egypt to learn the ways of geometry, astronomy, and philosophy. Approaching the end of his studies, it is recorded that Thales was the first to measure the height of the Egyptian pyramids. He did this by first waiting until the exact moment when the height of his own shadow matched the length of his body. The next day, at the exact same time, he measured the length of the pyramid shadow, thus calculating its height. Soon after, Thales concluded his studies and began the return home to Miletus. During the voyage, Thales would begin to develop his most important idea, what would later become known as the arche, or the source of all things. Perhaps, Thales thought, water is the source of all things. Reaching home, Thales soon began establishing himself publicly, spreading the knowledge he had gained from the Egyptians. He engaged with fellow citizens from all walks of life, from merchants to the priests to the artisans and the ruling classes. Some regarded his ideas as curious, others as impractical, and many would simply find them strange, mostly ignoring him. And, looking back, it's not hard to see why the people of Miletus were initially so bewildered by this man who had developed a reputation for being somewhat odd. One account, during this exact period of his life, has Thales walking home one evening, having become so fixated on the night sky, and in particular the constellations, he, very clumsily, fell into a well, to the great amusement of a local Thracian woman, who later remarked that he is eager to know what is in the heavens, but fails to see what is right in front of him. After all, why should the people of this city, one of the most advanced and wealthiest in all the Greek world, listen to him? Thales had neither wealth nor fame. Surely, if all this philosophy and astronomy and roundabout knowledge were so valuable, why were its practitioners so useless at living? Of what benefit does any of this knowledge bring? Realizing the problem, Thales soon set about demonstrating the practical benefits of his way of thinking. For many months he perused his library, searching for any information which could prove that his knowledge brought some degree of value. After some time, he deduced that certain weather patterns in the region indicated an impending heatwave, a likelihood which favoured the oil press business. Using what little resources he had, taking out several loans, Thales bought up every single oil press he could find in and around the city of Miletus, and, soon after, became one of the wealthiest men in the city, gaining both great wealth and fame. Now, he no longer sought the people sought him. Intrigued by the practical benefits of his knowledge and wisdom, Thales was later appointed an advisor to the city council, a position which may have saved the city from certain destruction. For it was not long after this appointment that Miletus had received word from Croesus, king of Lydia, requesting the city join his upcoming campaign against the Persians. Following a series of speeches made by the members of the council, many in favour of the campaign, Thales arose, and, following an impassioned speech, persuaded the council to remain neutral in the upcoming conflict. In the month that followed, Croesus was defeated in battle by the great king of Persia, Cyrus. Claiming victory, Cyrus annexed many of Croesus' territories into the Persian Empire, but completely spared Miletus, even opening fresh negotiations with the city's council. Concluding these talks, the Miletians agreed to acknowledge Persian supremacy in exchange for preserving a substantial degree of local autonomy. Word would soon travel throughout all Greece and beyond about a strange and eccentric man whose knowledge had accrued immense personal wealth and who had saved a city from certain defeat. Such was Thales' fame that he was later summoned to the Oracle of Delphi, the most important religious site in all Greece. Here he would attend a meeting which would later become legend, the meeting of the seven sages, the wisest men in all Greece. Among them included Bias, a politician from the city of Priene, regarded by some, including the famous Heraclitus, as the wisest of the seven. Pittacus, a renowned general, famous for winning many victories in war, victories even against the Athenians. Solon, the famous legal reformer, some would say the godfather of Athenian democracy. Cleobulus, the ruler or tyrant of Lindos. Myson of Kyne. Chelon, a cunning Spartan administrator whose legal reforms would a century later save the Greek mainland from Persian conquest. And finally, Thales himself. The story for which this meeting is remembered is that of the golden tripod, or the golden apple. Exactly how this scene occurred is lost to history. Maybe one of the 7 openly declared for whatever reason that the wisest among them ought to be chosen. Perhaps it was the oracle herself who introduced the question. But what we do know is that, during this meeting, a golden apple was introduced to the 7. The first to hold the apple was Thales himself, who then handed it to Bias, who then handed it to each of the group's members, until finally returning to Thales, who once again offered it to Bias, but who in turn refused. Thales then offered it to anyone, asking each of the men individually, but all refused. The implication was clear, and Thales, in accordance with his conscience as a philosopher, and likely in line with his political prudence, dedicated the apple not once, but twice to Apollo, the god of knowledge, light, and prophecies. His reputation for knowledge and wisdom unmatched, Thales spent the rest of his days in his home city of Miletus. There he served as educator to the next generation of philosophers and statesmen. He soon established a school, which would produce the first cohort of philosophers, the famous Milesian school. The first to join him was Anaximander, followed by Anaximenes, among several others. The overarching focus of this school was in discovering the arche, the idea which Thales had himself developed all those years ago upon his return from Egypt. Having pondered this question for years, Thales became increasingly convinced that water is in fact a suitable candidate for this arche. After all, water changes states, first from liquids, then to vapor, and then ice. It sustains life, all life. It appears everywhere, and beneath everything. If we dig deep enough, we will, at some point, encounter water. Surely then, it is water which holds up the world. The famous students of Thales, however, disagreed. Anaximenes instead believed this arche to be air, and Anaximander thought the arche to be the apeiron, a kind of infinite substance. It is here, among the first generation of philosophers, that Thales spent the remainder of his days, passing away at the age of 78, during the 58th Olympiad, back in 548 BC, an ordinary end for an otherwise extraordinary life. In the years to come, the life and character of Thales would shift from wise man into the legendary founder of Western philosophy. Later historians would recount that, at the time, Thales alone had raised philosophy from mere speculation to practice, a practice which would be passed down through the generations, leading to some of the greatest philosophers in the classical world, all of whom owe themselves at least in part to Thales.